In this real-side experience, the scene would open in a house. I would be in the company of a group of individuals, numbering half a dozen or so. Often we may find ourselves in recreated versions of our physical level homes on the real side, and the representation is that of the consciousness. The ground floor representing the physical personal self, that which we are conscious of, and the second floor, the unseen areas and dimensions of the created self that most are unconscious of. And should we find individuals in our houses, this suggests agreement with them, as the idea of them, their consciousness construct and body form, will have been incorporated as an overall idea into our consciousness representing houses. So naturally, all those we have agreement with can feature at any time in our recreated houses. And of course, in regards to subconscious agreements, those extended to individuals we are not conscious of, but were established perhaps lifetimes ago, so then these individuals may feature more so in the unseen dimensions that effect from the other body vehicles of the created self, and indeed such individuals, if we harbour subconscious agreements with, we may find them not only on the upper floor, but in what would be construed as storage areas, spare rooms, the attic, skulking about in the back gardens, even hiding in closets. As with one experience shared by Duane regarding an individual who retained subconscious agreements to Harold and Joni, and would find them lurking in such a place, a closet, and the guides proceeded to throw them out, but only with the agreement from the individual, as we are the deciders, and must agree to release agreements, attachments, or choose to maintain them. And just as we may find other individuals in our recreated houses on the real side, so we may just as readily find ourselves featuring in the houses of others, as after all, just like dancing, agreements are a two-way street between individuals, requiring two to tango, as they say. But anyway, houses and buildings also can represent other ideas, depending on the experience, for indeed everything simulated we experience is effected from an idea, and it falls on us to somewhat back-engineer real-side experiences, to recognize the ideas present, or that which are being presented behind the simulated literal front. The individuals in this experience would be unknown to my personal self, in that there would be lacking any references regarding them in my current memory body of experiences, physical and real aside, but the real awareness that is a part of all real awareness, that is this overall isness everything, that is through everything creational and consciousness constructed, can then read all ideas that all consciousness everywhere comprises of. Intent can be determined, and the real awareness impressions here revealed the group I was in the company of as being those on their own respective awareness processes, and all would be human in appearance. It was as though we were waiting for someone or something, a sense of anticipation in the air, and we each would be armed with a hand-held gun. My personal self knows nothing of guns, but the bullets they fired were referred to as 5.5 caliber, if I recollect the number exactly as I write this. So it seems we were preparing for a less than welcome addition to our scene, armed as we were, and we even would have a little shooting practice in the house, blasting a hole in the wall, and then attempting to shoot another bullet at the same approximate spot. And perhaps, as we were expecting an attack of some kind, this was then an agreement shared by the group and myself that would effect the potentiality of such, as nothing can happen experience-wise absent of the idea agreement that generates it, including attacks by others, and then the outcome, who will emerge victorious, is again agreement-dependent, a kind of a contract decided between all involved, by whatever means, whenever and wherever such a determining of effect outcome through idea agreement was secured. And as buildings represent consciousness, as I said, a collective consciousness can be any group of individuals who share certain idea agreements that effect the corresponding shared experience, and collectives can be formed through any commonly held to agreement idea, and the building a group of individuals are within on the real side can represent this shared agreement through the consciousness that has the group as a collective. As sometimes I have entered large shopping malls on the real side that represent the collective consciousness of all those who dwell within them. And so it was that our attention was drawn to the windows, as an almighty shapeless form came from the skies, as though a great glowing billowing cloud. It would smash through the windows, scattering glass debris everywhere. And within the house now, the cloud would coalesce into the form of a huge being, humanoid in appearance, though its form was constantly in flux, as though it couldn't decide exactly as to the body type it wanted to assume. It was almost ethereal in its form, like a giant ghost, although capable of causing impact to the simulated situation we were in. It would rather settle its form as that of a huge bearded man. The interior of the house was fairly spacious, the ceiling 30 feet or so from the floor, and this being would fill the space from floor to ceiling with ease. It glowered at us with malevolence, and my impressions suggested a being of tremendous creational power, tremendous agreement therefore to his power, as an individual can only be powerful over others, and on a vast scale, if agreement to that power is on an equally as vast a scale. The others of the group were somewhat stunned and shocked into paralysis by the vision of the being before us, as evidently whatever we had been doing had infuriated it, and it was here to not only intimidate, but to cause us harm also. And as the group remained unmoving, seemingly forgetting their firearms, I fired a shot that had my bullet insert itself into the chin of the leering, hate-filled face that glared down upon us. The bullet had no effect whatsoever, and as bullets, or any projectile fired on the real side, represent ideas, if the idea is accepted or not is made apparent by the impact it has, and that the bullet was ineffectual indicated that whatever idea I had presented this being with had not been accepted or agreed with. It would turn its hate-filled attentions upon me, and my personal self was rather alarmed. However, as is often the case, the real awareness goes about the process of dealing with all real side situations and adverse individuals within the parameters of agreements that the personal self as its consciousness has maintained, and so the real awareness can deal with anything. It just depends on the extent the personal self holds to limiting ideas and agreements, which in turn limit the real awareness's effectiveness, as after all, if the personal self holds to idea agreements that a particular being has a power over them, this is the personal self's free will choice to potentially experience said being expressing this power over them, and the real awareness, the guides, can't violate such free will choice and decision, as we always are the deciders of our simulation, and as it involves others. And so it was that evidently this being, as creationally powerful as he was able to bring his considerable might and consciousness-created abilities to bear, but seemingly there were no agreements present with my consciousness of his power over my simulated created self, and so, without the agreement idea, there cannot be the simulation. He would chase me from the house, my group remaining within it, and as he pursued me with sustained, murderous intentions, throwing lightning bolts and various other magical fireballs and so forth at me, it was as though my real awareness was manipulating the very simulation we both were featuring in, to not only repel his attack, but to retaliate also, as though the very scene came alive. The trees, the buildings, the very fabric that made up the environment would be impacting him adversely, and after a while he began as though to tire, and now he was weakly crawling along the ground laboriously toward me, still intent on bestowing harm upon my simulated self. As I said, if I harbour no agreements that an individual can harm me in my consciousness, or maybe I did, and they were addressed and released, then despite said individual's best efforts, and no matter how mighty they are, this cannot be my simulated experience, and as such beings attempt to attack us, their failure to do so will present in various simulated ways, such as was the case here in this experience, ultimately as even his crawling ceased, as all he could do now was reach feebly toward me with one giant hand, so the very air became as glowing as smoke, and somewhat bound and cocooned the being within its billowing embrace, effectively nullifying the giant being, and then he would fade away, his attempt on attacking my simulated self unsuccessful. As I said, as we go about the process of awareness, part of which is a facing of the consciousness construct and a releasing of all the idea agreements and attachments it comprises of, so we become steadily more invincible in creation. For if every idea of my consciousness is released, then nothing of its nature can effect into a simulation, including the various agreements that were established and extended to the power over me of controllers and ill-intended dark force characters in all their forms, and now only what I consciously decide and agree to will feature as my experience.
Okay, Kevin, did you run out of bullets?
No, I've always got more bullets in my gun.
That's another funny one, Kevin. Yes, and so seen many creatures myself. One passed by last night to show himself with some kind of giant whatever, but he made a run for it. But you seem to have all these scientific episodes, which is very, very interesting. And yes, these things are happening out there. And then as you confront it, and as others do, these scary, magnified ideas that people create of themselves, they're not really what they seem, like the Wizard of Oz, And so that's the fun part. That's taking on the challenge. And as I've said before, yes, you're going to get attacked. You're going to be whacked. You're going to be this and that. And that's just part of it. But stepping up is so cool and dealing with it. And you get help to revive, etc. But no, it's great that you keep at this, Kevin. Many people have come and gone. They've shared certain things, but the focus is much better right now to really do this, etc. So and just see the results. They come very slowly in the physical. So this is where endurance, and it takes a lot of patience and endurance to really kind of see how this happens to be. So. It was referred to in another experience someone had. And I like to hear the experiences of others because you are the witnesses. And just like in the courtroom, you need witnesses to verify and get agreement. And the real guys are saying that, we want the world, the earth for the next 100 years, for the next 1,000 years. And so it's a big plan, you might say. It's not an encased plan, but one that will constantly have variables to it, and people will come and go. And so to stay with this and see what's going on and be part of it and be more aware, that's the big adventure too. Recognizing this isness, truly recognizing it and stepping forward and really doing something. But it's a lot of fun to always hear you, Kevin, and things are doing very well right here. Could be some really good news any moment because I got a lot of agreement with things. So you coming over here and Jeremy and whatever, it's going to be very, very interesting for us. And so just like Ava coming here, every time someone comes, it becomes more so. And yes, thank you. That's really cool. Thank you so much.